One thing that has been covered a lot in the age of internet reviewing is film or TV adaptations of video games. We've even done this here with reviews of the Battletoads cartoon pilot, Sonic Underground, and the Super Mario cartoons that certain other reviewers wouldn't look at. And yet, all of those might pale in comparison to our subject today because at least all of them had something to do with the games they were based around, which is in no way the case here. Yes, we may have found the absolute bottom of the barrel. Maniac Mansion was actually the first self-published computer game for George Lucas's video games division. Released in 1987 and developed by Ron Gilbert and Gary Winnick, the PC adventure game harkens back to old 50s B sci-fi movies, as a bunch of teen friends are out to rescue a cheerleader from a mad scientist that is capturing brains to feed to a sentient evil meteor that crashed on Earth 20 years ago. And yet that story still makes more sense than just about any movie released by the Asylum. With its non-linear gameplay and multiple possible endings, the game received a lot of critical acclaim at the time, with novelist Orson Scott Card even saying it was a step toward video games becoming valid storytelling art. I would highly recommend checking out Pushing Up Rose's review of the game for more detail of it all, since I never actually played the game. Not that you would need to know much about the game to try and get into the television series that premiered in 1990, because this thing would make Uwe Boll shake his head at how much they got wrong from the source material. How much wrong? Consider this. My #1 source of information for years on the game itself was a Nintendo Power Guide article from 30 years ago on the NES port of the game. That game was released just before the TV series itself premiered, and a subsequent article on the show was published in the next issue. Even with only that little info, I could tell from reading both stories that the TV show had pretty much nothing to do with the game. And the obvious question is why? What could possibly be the reason the creators of this show felt they couldn't make a more faithful adaptation to one of the best-selling computer games of its time? There we go. Yep, let's take a game that had so much sexual innuendo and adult themes that it could have been made into a movie that would air on USA Up All Night, and instead make it a TV series to air on Pat Robertson's network. Okay, there's actually a little more to it than just that, but I'll get to it later on. For now, let's just get into the Maniac Mansion TV series and see if it causes you to OD on crazy pills. Do I even need to go any further? I could stop this review right now, as this title sequence alone should be all the proof you need that this thing is gonna blow chunks. Let's even ignore the fact that this is based off of a video game where a mad scientist wants to feed human brains to an alien creature. The title of this show actually has the word maniac in it, and you give it a theme song that makes it seem like we're about to watch Seventh Heaven. Oh, but at least they opened that title sequence with a news article talking about a meteor landing near the titular mansion, just like in the game. Only here the rock landed at least 70 years ago instead of 20, and thus was not discovered by Dr. Fred Edison, but his grandfather. And it's not evil at all, it just aided the family in making the crazy inventions they've ever since been known for. About the only thing that makes me sadder is knowing that exact same plot device was used in the Honey, I Shrunk the Kids TV show. And yeah, we probably will get to that thing eventually. Now, I do want to give one important caveat in that my source for getting these episodes were clearly old VHS recordings that people put up on YouTube and the like, since this show has never gotten a full home video release to the best of my knowledge. As such, like with many other shows I've reviewed, there are issues with the viewings that we all had to deal with back with re-recordings on cassette tape, but may have stopped getting used to in this age of better digital recordings. Mainly fuzzy dark video quality and muffled audio with a slight buzzing sound always in the background. So obviously the big question is, would I have had a better experience with this show if I was able to watch it in better recording quality?
Our 10th anniversary special.
10 years. Hard to believe, huh?
Yeah, who would have thought when we did our very first show that we'd still be on the air 10 years later?
We're very lucky.
Well, with me, it's not so much luck as talent.
I'm guessing the answer is no. So yeah, this is how we start the first episode, which is literally titled the 10th Anniversary Special.
Mom, I hate your approach to motherhood.
Well, that'd be me.
Enjoy the show.
I don't even get the show! Seriously, the first 2 minutes of the series had to have made almost every single person who tuned in wonder what the last thing they drank was laced with. Even if you never knew about the video game when you decided to check this out, you must have had to ask yourself what the frickin' frack was going on. The main character is dreaming that his life is a TV show, and they're in the process of airing their 10th anniversary episode that's completely filled with god-awful fourth wall jokes. And how the hell do you actually make the concept of the Bewitched movie make sense by comparison? In fact, between this and the bizarre camera setups and incredibly stilted acting of everyone, this show is actually just a few out-of-place musical numbers from becoming cop rock.
This is a 10th anniversary dinner. It's a very special night for this family. But it is a family thing, and sometimes family takes priority over people like Jose, who I'm sure is a very nice person, but he wasn't written into the restaurant scene.
I dreamt the whole family starred in its own TV show.
Our own TV show.
Yeah, and your name was Casey.
My name is Casey.
Oh, right. And it was our 10th anniversary special.
Oh, honey, come to bed.
Boy, it seems so real.
Oh, come on, let's go.
All right. Oh,
Besides, let's just get through the first year before we start looking ahead another 10.
Look, I know that you probably didn't have the budget to have giant sentient tentacles in this show, but you could at least give us something more creepy and kooky than this! So just what is the real premise of this show? Well, rather than be about the teenagers that were the heroes of the game, the series instead focuses on the Edison family that lives in the titular mansion. And if you think this family has anything in common with the family of the games, oh honey child, I will weep for you. Their family name is Edison, the man of the house is named Dr. Fred, and that's about it.
You're up early.
yeah, I'm fine-tuning the Polaritron.
Sounds like my kind of morning.
Well, look, if I can get that thing humming, I got a good shot at getting Harry back to normal. You know, I feel bad for the guy. I don't know, his whole life's been upside down lately.
I'll keep my fingers crossed. The kids are coming down for breakfast. Did you eat?
If this experiment doesn't work, I'll eat the chicken.
And of course, this Dr. Fred looks nothing like the character from the game. And we all thought Breckin Meyer as John Arbuckle was bad casting. Speaking of casting, yes, that's SCTV alum Joe Flaherty, who you might also recognize as the Western Union guy from Back to the Future Part 2. And yes, we'll be mentioning SCTV even more later on. As As for this version of Dr. Fred, he's not so much an evil mad scientist as an absent-minded professor who supposedly quit his job at a major research facility to focus on his inventions. I guess with the blessings of his loving and understanding wife Casey, who is just one more thing to check off in the show getting completely wrong. See, in the game, it's more or less implied that Dr. Fred and his wife, they're named Nurse Edna, aren't exactly on great terms, even though she is aiding him in his evil plans. It's practically stated there that she's become a nympho due to not getting any action since her husband shut himself up in the basement and has been whoring herself out to anyone who will call her number. This is actually a plot point in that you have to call her sex hotline in order to distract her at one part of the game. Are you starting to see why this thing was better made for an up-all-night movie? Also, they have 3 kids in the show, including Turner, who is supposedly a 4-year-old in the body of a preteen. Because someone seemed to think that making fun of people with mental retardation is funny. Guess what? I'm not one of those people. By the way, the other 2 kids are named Ike and Tina because Dr. Fred loved Ike and Tina Turner? I don't get it. About the only thing fully connecting the show to its sci-fi roots is another character created just for the show. Uncle Harry, who is a human fly as a result of one of Fred's experiments gone wrong. In fact, the second episode really focuses on him and his wife, the latter of which is afraid she's losing her husband because he's been hanging out more with another insect.
Harry's always been a ladies' man, ever since I known him. And I don't expect a leopard to change his spots just because he's sprouted a few more legs, a pair of wings, and spends most of his time in a sugar cube.
Oh, so they do have a couple whose relationship is rocky due to mad science gone wrong. Sorry, boys, you don't get points for hitting the plywood the dartboard is hanging on. Besides that, what you get here is just a generic, boring family sitcom with Dr. Fred's lab and/or his experiments occasionally being connected to the plot.
You remember a guy named Harry Orca? Used to hang around the track all the time? Well, he's somewhere. And I want him.
So I ended up testifying against the guy. But I didn't think they'd let him out this soon.
Vice President of the United States is coming to our house. Saturday.
I guess you'll just tell the vice president your kid is a 4-year-old mutant.
Look, we are a family. We are who we are. I won't make a point of bringing up Turner's age or the accident, but if it comes up, so be it.
I guess you want to introduce me too, Mr. Vice President. I'd like you to meet my brother-in-law, Harry the Fly.
Well, that'd be pushing it.
You almost get the feeling that Jendi Tartakovsky saw this show, knew he could do something better, and Dexter's Lab was the result. Now, I would love more than anything else to blame Pat Robertson alone for how the show turned out into such a saccharine bastardization of what really was a pretty edgy video game for its time. But then there are the people who actually worked on the thing. The idea to adapt Maniac Mansion into a TV show was originally pitched by veteran animation writers Cliff Ruby and Elena Lesser. Lucasfilm, however, outsourced the actual production of the show to Canadian studio Atlantis Films, who proceeded to hand over development duties to Eugene Levy. Yes, the guy from all the American Pie films. Though at the time, he was still mainly known for his work on SCTV. Starting to see where things are coming together? Supposedly, the original idea was to make the show a horror comedy in the old style of the Addams Family and the Munsters. But Levy shot down that idea and brought in a number of his old SCTV buddies to make the show more lighthearted in tone. And it ended up using a lot of the humor style that SCTV was known for. Now, I want to make this clear. I am not out to bash or ridicule SCTV. It has been as influential to sketch comedy television as its American counterpart Saturday Night Live. And it helped kickstart the careers of many great comedic actors, like John Candy, Rick Moranis, Catherine O'Hara, and Harold Ramis. But that doesn't mean its comedic style works for everything. And certainly not something like an adaptation of Maniac Mansion. Even if producers were insistent on making this show a sitcom, this was not the way to go.
The Maniac Mansion 10th anniversary special will return after these commercial messages.
So I get the feeling this show would have been a disaster anyway. And the Family Channel itself probably wasn't to blame in that regard. It probably, however, was a big reason such a bomb of a show still managed to get 3 seasons. The show ceased production in 1993, but reruns stayed on the Family Channel for another year. It actually continued to air on Canada's YTV for another 3 years after that, actually suggesting this show had a following north of the border. And if that's the case, it's just another example of how Canadians are far more tolerant and patient than us. Because for us ugly Americans, this has to be the worst video game adaptation of all time, at least for television, and it's not even close! So many people have bashed the Super Mario Bros. Super Show from the 80s, but at least there I could see those characters and reasonably believe they could have those personalities in the games. Yes, even Link and Zelda acting like a medieval Dave and Maddie I could get behind. As bad as Captain N was to watch at times, there was at least some effort to tie the show back to all of the games that were represented within it. Not good effort, but still effort. But this? You had a computer game centered around a mad scientist helping aliens take over the world, his sexually repressed wife, and a bunch of teenagers looking to be cannon fodder, and you turned it into something even more saccharine than Family Ties. Amazingly, the show itself was referenced in the game's 1993 sequel, Day of the Tentacle, where Dr. Fred grumbles that he got no royalties off of the show because he never mailed in the contract. Personally, I'd say the doc should have been glad he was never associated with this. Even as someone who never played the game, I can safely say Maniac Mansion was just not meant to be adapted into a TV series, let alone one that used the same comedic style of a variety show, and definitely not meant to air on one of the most conservative, squeaky clean networks out there. Because the result was doomed to be a bland, unfunny drag that was sanitized and censored even worse than the NES port of the game itself. I mean, we didn't even get a scene with dead cousin Ted in the shower, so what was even the point? See you next time on TV Trash.